नहमदुहु व नसल्ली अला रसूलिल करीम अम्मा बाद बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome and thank you for joining this week's um, session on the Wayfarer's Path, in which we talk about how to become, how to commit, how to remain an active Muslim in an increasingly discordant world. This week's topic, I must admit, was is not, it can come across as hyperbole. So it's worse than thought. A London Financial Times article on how mobile phones are causing civilization collapse. Uh, Probably sounds outlandish, sounds, like I said, hyperbolic. And a Salek did reach out to tell me that I was being a bit hyperbolic in the sense that there's 8 billion people, even with falling birth rates, which is what this article is about. I'll go over it step by step, paragraph by paragraph, so that we can discuss it. But that the idea that my statement was hyperbolic. And upon further contemplation, I still think that that is not the case. If anything, alarm bells are not ringing loud enough in this about this major fitna which is afflicting our life, and for various reasons, which not just the mobile phone itself, but the solutions that are provided, but uh, how much urgency is being given to these issues, let alone the impact itself. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over this article. I found a very interesting article, and I really appreciate Salih sending it to me. I wanted to access it, but I couldn't, and I really wanted to read it. And by chance, he sent it to me also. And I'm like, hey, I really want to read this. So I'm glad you sent it my way. So Jazakallah to that Salih. So yeah, so this idea that it's worse than we thought. Mobile phones are causing civilization collapse. What stimulated this? What provoked um this conversation that I wanted to make? That this bayaan I wanted to make. Yeah, look, I'll tell you one thing front and center. I realize more and more that family life is the bedrock of Islamic civilization. It's the bedrock of the Islamic way of life, right? And the relationship between a husband and wife, between and husband and wife actually is what is at its core. And this is also coming to my head right now, it's coming to my mind right now, why perhaps this is also the area that has been most focused on for destruction, extremely nefariously, whether through pop culture, through our movies, through what jokes are made, but basically this family unit, right? And it's been done in a very devious fashion. You know how Shaitan, for example, for the Salik of the moment, he's not going to tell the Salik of the moment to stop their father's prayers, right? He's going to work very deviously by slicing away the faith, the iman, the practices of the moment, the believer, the Salik. So what is he going to start with? He's going to start with saying, Shaitan is going to start by saying that, you know what, stop your nafls, right? Or, you know what, these supererogatory practices that you're doing, tasbihat, just relax with them. You're doing your sunnats, you're doing your farais. Why are you so worried? Huh? This is extra, do other stuff. Then he move towards sunnah. So much so that by the time, in a short time span, he'll arrive at your foundation also, the farais, the basic, the fundamentals, the must do's. But of course, the salik, that's not good enough. For the moment, that's not good enough. For the Muslim of this day and age, for what is critical for him or her to maintain their faith, their iman in this day and age, it's not enough just to do the farais. In this day and age, all the more reason, all the more need to do sunnat and um, the the nafls, right? So how will Shaitan and his emissaries, uh, whatever you want to call them, his agents, the willing fools, if you will, the willing emissaries in this world, how have they gone about in destroying, in undermining, and then destroying this bedrock of our way of life, our life, our civilization, the Muslim way of life. Mhm. Life. I think it started by communities. chipping away with communities. What's the need of community, right? What's the need of shared spaces? What's the need for a village, if you will, a neighborhoods, villages, communities, then extended families. And by extended families, I don't mean to say that, oh, you need to be living with your parents or without them. That's not the point I'm trying to make over here. But this idea that the extended family is the source of socialization, it's a source of nurturing, it's a source of mentoring, it's a source of love, it's a source of connection, right? The extended family. Um, uh, I grew up without having a lot of cousins, and it's something I sorely missed. It's something I really felt lacking in my life, right? Which is why I keep trying to encourage my kids to be with their cousins, to be with their relatives, and they have an amazing time with them, right? This blood is thicker than water, this saying. And these are relationships that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created, right? So they're there for a reason. And of course, they will have these positive impacts, these positive feelings that come from it. So Shaitan and his willing emissaries, his willing fools, who have gone about starting by undermining communities, undermining extended families, and then undermining, and then when chipping away with them, we arrived at this current formulation, which is called the nuclear family, right? I remember reading in my sociology class about the nuclear family, the 30s, 40s, 50s, this idea husband, wife, and two kids. And that's it, right? This became the bedrock of Western civilization, modern industrial Western civilization. And now even that has disappeared. Even that's gone away. Single parent houses, LGBTQ um, households, polyamorous households, multiple parents raising multiple kids. So this is the success of Shaitan. This is the success of his willing agents to go about. And what is at the core of this unit? The husband and the wife, right? The husband and the wife who around whom these communities and these extended families and these kids orbit around. And the way the Shaitan has gone about doing it is by undermining the relationship between these two. Okay. And I think you will see this at the bedrock of this article also. So I emphasize this a lot because I saw in my life what a critical role having a partner, a good partner, has had in playing a strong role. And again, look, I understand that everyone goes through issues in their life. Um, so may Allah make it easy on everyone. May Allah uh, uh, make one pass through the imtihan if they are not in such a situation. But so please don't try to. Please don't get me wrong. Um, it's not meant to rub in the face of those who are perhaps not who are afflicted by a lack of the situation. So please don't get me wrong, but just try to understand and in fact draw strength from your situation even about how important a husband wife a male female relationship in a halal situation, how critical and important that is, and to draw strength from their current imtihan and to move towards this natural state of being. Right. So this article, without further ado, it is in Financial Times article. And I think it was one of the most popular, most read articles, and we'll go over the comments also. But the article's heading is why birth rates are falling everywhere all at once. So everywhere, not just Western countries, which were considered whose the hallmark of their birth rate was below replacement rate. So it's not just them, but it's countries like ours even now. And you're seeing that, but the reasons are pretty incredible. So I'll read it out quickly um, for your uh, for your digestion, for your digesting. So the demographic landslide defining our era is gaining speed and terrain. In more than two-thirds of the world's 195 countries, the average number of children born to each woman has fallen below the replacement rate of 2.1 that keeps the population stable without immigration. In 66 countries, the average is now closer to 1 than to 2, so below 1.5. In some, the most common number of children born to each woman is 0. Wow. Wow. Imagine what neighborhoods they must be like. I remember when I was in the Netherlands, nothing against Netherlands, just describing the situation, which is that you won't hear the sound of kids that often. Even then, I was like in a more family oriented neighborhood, so you would hear it. But if not, then you just won't hear the same amount of kids noises coming as would be the case in Pakistan, which also now seems to be heading apparently in this direction. But in some, the most common number of children born to each woman is 0. Shocking. Both the pace and the breadth of the decline are defying expectations. Just 5 years ago, you had predicted that there would be 350,000 births in South Korea in 2023. That was a 50% overestimate. The real figure was 230,000. So, Korea, a country that we look up to, a country whose culture we digest and absorb, okay, fine, nothing against it. Yeah, against it. But just be careful who you're taking your religion from because their religion is not working for them. This very critical factor of having children. Now, the more they talk about this, okay, the more you realize their approach is purely for economic reasons, right? Talk about fiscal space and the economy is not growing and GDP growth and aging population, all well and good, and but that is not the way the Muslim approaches this, right? We have an ethical and a moral issue. Most importantly, the Sunnah not being followed. Most importantly, only importantly, the Sunnah not being followed and Allah's commands not being followed, direct commands not being followed. We'll come to that. So the article goes on to say, while high and middle income countries have been wrestling with demographic decline for more than half a century, the phenomenon has markedly accelerated in the past 10 years. Analysis of data ranging from population records to Google searches indicates that although many factors contribute to falling birth rates, the most recent plunge appears connected with our use of technology. Now, initially, I also found this an interesting topic about falling birth rates. And the hypothesis was, and I think it was a reasonably well correlated uh, strongly causal hypothesis, strongly causal relationship. The cause was that the more economically strong and redistributive of wealth a country was, the more birth rates would fall, right? Because children are a social and economic insurance policy, right? For humans, I mean, a person like me is very worldly. So if I was in their situation, I would have done the same. The idea that the more children you have, the more they can take care of you in your old age, and that's understandable. It's a rational approach. It's a reasonable approach towards a practical approach towards one's life, right? And one must enact and follow this, right? So, and this was an argument about and this these articles I was reading, these books I was reading, book I think it was Mahmoud Mamdani, who was the father of uh, Mayor Mamdani. What's his name? Mahmoud Mamdani is the young one. His father. It was called the myth of population growth. I think very good book, good book. But his hypothesis was that all these developed countries who talk about population control and the population bomb and the demographic bomb and what are you going to do about these hordes of brown and black people? We need to do something about it. So let's do population control. We all know about how much the UN, and I remember near my house how the UN had this whole "Do bache hi achhe," 2 kids are just right um, office and campaigns around that. But his point being that these Western people, those who have everything, are so obsessed with developing countries, those who have nothing, to reduce their population birth rate. But if they're genuinely interested in, if that's the reason they want to bring down the birth rate, or if they genuinely want to bring down the birth rate, the way to go about it is through redistributive practices, right? Which Islam has at its core, right? Zakat and redistribution of wealth and sadaqah and um, a natural a natural corrector, natural systemic corrector to ensure that growth rates, population growth rates remain stable, right? Again, with this idea that risk is written by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in fact, people who are much poorer and way more kids, and Allah somehow arranged their risk. Okay, yeah, fine. People, naysayers will say their their uh, the death rates were much higher, disease rates were much higher. But actually, that's all the more reason to follow Islam because Islam talks about good practices, hygienic practices, and so on and so forth. So you've got nothing on Islam. The more you follow it, even back in the day, the better the confirmed success it would ensure. But nonetheless, I think it's a comment to be made that Allah has written people's risk uh, and it's guaranteed. And people who fret so much in this day and age about where their wealth is going to come and how they can't give birth to kids because it's so expensive. And well, let's look in the past, and those who had nothing still went about. It was a harsh life, but they went about, in uh, being active in life, and uh, in this case, procreating, because Allah has promised that their risk will be ensured. Okay, so this was the previous hypotheses, the reasoning, and from what I know, um, uh, uh, on the right, on the dot, about why why birth rates fall. We saw this in East Asia. We saw this probably in Pakistan, India. What to talk of developed countries? The more egalitarian a country, the more redistributive country, the more economic growth in the country, the greater we see the fall in the birth rates. However, the most recent plunge appears connected with our use of technology, right? And then there are these multiple graphs in which they talk about how birth rates have steeply declined in the past 15 years across different cultures and levels of economic development. And you even have Middle East over here, which has gone, oh my God, almost to two in 2025. Last year, Middle East and North Africa, what the the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers could not achieve, the mobile phone has, probably through their investments. Anyhow, so high income countries at 1.4, Northern Europe at 1.4, East Asia, wow, they're not even at one. All these Asian tigers that we love to talk about, that's what Eastern Asia is, right? Yeah, Eastern Asia. The Chinese miracle, the Japanese miracle, all these miracles. I'm not saying that they shouldn't be economic growth. I'm just saying that if you ape them mindlessly, feverishly, and if you just hanker after their way of life, well, see what they have to show for it, right? We can have all of that and more as long as we follow the Sunnah of the Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. I'll talk on it, especially on this topic also. Stay tuned. Now, so the article goes on to say almost all of the world is now affected. Until recently, ultra low and rapidly following birth rates were primarily a concern for rich countries, but many developing countries now lower fertility rates than much wealthier ones. In 2023, Mexico, Mexico's birth rate fell below that of the US for the first time. The US, as subsequently did those of Brazil, Tunisia, Muslim country, Iran, Muslim country, and Sri Lanka. Okay, fine. In fact, I was hearing a few weeks ago about they talking about Iran and how successful their birth control policies were. Successful. Lower middle income countries are now getting old before they get rich. See, they're pushing from a purely material perspective, from a worldly perspective. Wow, Mexico is at 1.4 something, or even lower. Now, the heading goes on to say the defining problem of our time. Here, this is the thing I was talking about, how everything is about the economy, the economy, the economy. The economy has become our way of life. Money, wealth, dollars, these have become our way of life, the barometer of how we should measure our success and failure. So, what is he talking about over here? The defining problem of our time is, apparently, population aging shrinks the workforce and exerts a drag on growth in productivity and living standards. Japan's stagnation since 1990s is almost entirely explained by low birth rates that have shrunk its working age population. I found that to be surprising. I didn't. There were lots of theories given about why, after the great stock market bubble collapse, why Japan went through a period of stagflation or stagnation. Again, Japan until the 1990s was considered a behemoth, economic behemoth, and the next in line to take over the US even. But it all popped, and see how Allah works. Um, today's pharaohs are tomorrow's, I don't know, Shudras. Japan's not there. Good people, anyhow, very good people. The article goes on to say fiscal pressure, it's all this economy. Fiscal pressure from ballooning spending on pensions and care also crowds out investment in infrastructure, helping create a sense of decline that fuels anti system politics. Right? Old against the young against the old, and everyone squeezed in between. Community trashed, parents, extended family trashed, right? Not even nuclear families anymore, nucleus individuals, um, who stay alone behind the television or mobile phone, scrolling mindlessly, maybe a beer or two in their hand, and that's what you want to aspire towards. People who are just have a sense of rage and despair and hopelessness building up inside of them. That day there was a, a huge demonstration from Tommy Robinson, who's this major right wing populist figure in British politics. And from what documentaries I've seen on this topic and the videos I've seen, and um, very sad bunch of people. I sincerely feel sorry for those people. I understand the despair they're going through. They have no hope. It's life is bleak for them. If you look at their towns, they're devastated, look bombed out, neutron bombed out. Um, but their solution is just to create hatred and to punch down versus I'm not even talking about recognizing the fact that it's spiritual decline they face. It's a spiritual emptiness, a lack of spirituality that they face. I'm not even talking about that, but taking my old socialist hat on, that those who have a lot, it's them probably usually interacting with to create a fair distribution of wealth. But no, that's not the case. Let's punch down. And then we wonder that why do poor people have it so bad, right? And poor people, it's very bad what's going on with them. Rich are getting richer, and a huge majority of the population is becoming an underclass, falling through the cracks. But the solution of these persons is not to look towards those who have everything, but to punch down. Not again to say that somehow this policy of punching upwards will help. It will also lead to devastation and the sort of situations that we saw, um, in history, more recent history, Soviet Union, for example. The real way to go about it is by focusing on the lack, the spiritual malaise that is afflicting our societies. And again, not this article that says it's all about the economy, right? Anyhow, they talk about Japan and etc. But this professor, Jesus Fernandez Villaverde, he's saying fertility decline is the big-ish question of our time. He argues that almost all present problems flow from the collapse in birth rates. Everything else is downstream. One does not have to be Elon Musk. I spoke about our heroes a few weeks ago. Yeah, I guess he's a hero. So uh, his name is going to come over here. People you look up to, who argues that declining birth rates represent the biggest risk to civilization. To see how they may already be exacerbating many of the world's social and economic tragedies. Can you believe it? We have like wealth pouring through our ears, nostrils, everything, and we still can't seem to get it right. The more we pursue the world, the less it has to offer. I can't even say, like, why can't people realize that? I mean, I'm taking a look at myself. I have to keep reminding myself about this. Thank goodness I have a shave to put a mirror to my face. So, but I get it. I don't justify it, but it's a pity. So, some hope a smaller population could help tackle climate change, but a recent study found lower birth rates will have, at best, a negligible impact on emissions over the coming decades. I can speak authoritatively on this. Even my sustainability tree hugging background. Yeah, this is a big thing in sustainability circles, right? That let's cut our birth rates and do our part for humanity, which is a ridiculously irrational way of approaching it. I mean, if the people who are driving the policy towards destroying the environment, as you say, if they are having more kids and they are having more kids, and your solution is to have less kids, instead of having more kids, educate them, um, impart upon them the importance of the environment. Instead of doing that and increasing the ratio of kids, you're saying, no, 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 I'm going to have less kids. Most of these people, incidentally, have a lot of pets also, right? So it's quite interesting. And pets are an environmental disaster in themselves also. Like I was reading about how pet cats, domesticated cats, have murder XYZ, not murder, like they have to eat also, but they kill tens of billions of birds. Dogs, they require dogs, which are not allowed in Islam for pet purposes, but how they, if you look at their feeding requirements and also their impact on wildlife, it causes a major environmental mayhem also. But of course, these same people who don't want to have kids, they want to have pets because you got to fill out your life with something, right? I saw that a lot in Europe also, and it really seemed obvious. It seemed really evident that that pet, that animal, was trying to fulfill, was trying to fill a void in people's life that shouldn't fill with children. I was also talking about how we last week about how we take this whole idea of alpha male, alpha packs from animals. We're taking our inspiration from animals. We're finding a solution also of companionship in animals. Like, are you kidding me? I'm not saying anything against animals. Animals are great. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created them and He created them for us. But if you're telling me that they're going to substitute a fundamental requirement in your life, it's a sad, 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 sad situation. And you and I only have ourselves to blame for it. And I'm talking to you and my environmental types also. Let's think through our actions and our choices. Birth rates are often collapsing despite, not because of people's desire. So despite people wanting to do good, they can't do good. Most young men and women still report wanting around 2 children. Even in South Korea, where most women now have zero. Instead, there is a fertility gap between goals and outcomes due to fictions and frustrations that have much to do with modern lifestyles, including our homes and increasingly our phones. Now, the article goes on. Singles night forever. In previous decades, the world's fertility rate went down because couples had fewer children. Now, the main reason is that there are fewer couples. Had US rates of marriage and cohabitation remained constant over the past decade, the total fertility rate would be higher today than it was 10 years ago. And so it says that in those families, that so for those people who do end up coupling, they have the same or more number of babies. But the proportion of women who are having any children at all has fallen steeply over the past 15 years, which I guess means to say that our um, so those who are having families, women who couple with men in a family unit, they're having stable or more children, but most women are choosing not to form partnerships, not to have family formation or partnerships. Husband wife is considered like a very taboo word in Europe, in the West, in some countries in the West, with partners takes the pressure off. But so apparently they're not even choosing to do that even, right? And here the number of children per mother for Chile, Finland, South Korea, US is either stable, rising, or falling. In South Korea is still falling, but the share of women who have children is falling dramatically. The stereotype often associated with this trend include women putting careers before children, or couples who choose not to have them despite plenty of disposable income. Hmm. But across a wide range of countries, the decline in birth and coupling is much steeper among those with the least education and least incomes. Oh my goodness. Firstly, you have a terrible life, right? We're all about the world, and apparently these are people who have the least education and least incomes, so they don't have a very great life as it is. And to top it off, they're deciding not to bring forth to this world a a being that can bring some joy to their life. By contrast, the share of university graduates forming couples and having children is stable or even rising in some cases. Alhamdulillah, finally, educated people have some sense also in something. Family formation, it seems, has become K-shaped. Um, so apparently, um, despite tripling per capita spending in real terms on benefits, subsidized childcare, parental leave, none of that has helped. Birth rates have still declined. So, so many people opt happily for a single life without children. Haha. But the data shows that across broader society, the number of people finding partners and having children is declining despite intentions. So apparently, many people opt happily to stay single for the rest of their lives. Okay, your choice. But those who want it also, their finding partners is declining. This is notably pronounced among the least well off and accompanies mounting loneliness and dating frustration. I saw a couple of these videos on dating frustration in England and the US, and the mobile phone was at its core. So, and this goes on to say, this article, as it goes on to show, that recently the major barrier to forming families was housing. And why is that be housing? Yeah? In Europe, Italian men have the stereotype of staying with their mamas, right? And that's considered a super bad thing. I stay with my mama, and I was happy. Alhamdulillah, my wife also. Uh, of course, there's issues and frictions among friends, families, everyone. So, of course, that's there. But alhamdulillah, that's also the point of life, right? That you get through it, that you grow together, right? So, but nonetheless, the Italian stereotype was them staying with their mamas, and that was considered a bad thing. So, here also, housing, lack of availability of housing, and the need to move in with the parents was considered a bad thing. Okay, but I think you make best of the situation, and living with one's parents, I think would be a good thing, right? I know I certainly benefited a lot from it. I'm not saying it's for everyone. In Arab countries, for instance, the families they separate in the sense the families are very close, but couples get their own houses, so they can do it, and why not? But if not, there should be no reason for uh, not wanting to, no reason for being frustrated and not exploring wanting to live with one's parents, right? So, according to Financial Times analysis, as much as half of those countries' declining fertility rates since the 1990s can be explained by falling home ownership and rising young adults who live with their parents. In such situations, the absence of long term housing acts as a barrier to other long term commitments. Everyone must have a mortgage and everyone needs to have their own brick and mortar, right? House. Okay, but this article goes on to say, but this cannot account for the most recent steep decline or its global breadth. In Nordic countries, in Nordic region, so Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Finland, for example, fertility has fallen despite economic stability and a rise in the number of young adults living on their own, rather than with parents or flatmates. And even when couples can afford to move into their place, they are increasingly likely to separate. Lane. In several countries, people who move in together are now more likely to split up than to have a child. Sharp reversal of the historical norm. History full of old fuddy-duddies and tradition and paternalism and old-fashionedness. And what do we have to show for it? No kids. Boo-hoo, old people. Fewer couples mean fewer children. Steep decline. I mean, this is Tunisia, Turkey. Oh my goodness. Let's look at these declines. So what's this? These graphs showing? Fewer couples mean fewer children. Relative change in coupling rate. Coupling rate refers to either marriage or any co-residential relationship, depending on data availability. Okay, and in Turkey, it's gone. The coupling rate has gone from, what can a coupling rate be? 110%. Oh, if 2010 was 100, okay, it's I'm forgetting what they call it. Normalized, or from a base of 100, 2010. Yeah, 100. It's gone down. Turkey's gone down. Tunisia's gone down. It's gone down from, the coupling rate has gone down from 100 to 80. And from Tunisia, also 80. And it's really shocking because it's worse than the US. It's worse than Thailand. Okay, maybe not shocking. It's almost as bad as Finland, which is at 75%, which is at 75, sorry. Mexico, same. Peru has it better. Wow, yeah, Muslim countries leave no stone unturned, being more Western than the Western man and Western families themselves. Then we wonder, why is Allah not here to help us? You want to be like them? Fine. Then you have to accept everything that comes with it also. And here it is in front of you in all its glory. Other economic factors also fall short of being conclusive, right? So basically, uh, in it's not economic factors, or that explains very small amount of this decline in kids and relationships. Okay, yeah, here's another possible factor is the changing relative position of young men and women. Girls are now far more likely to attend university than boys, and lower educated young men are now often out earned by their female counterparts, changing the calculus for settling down with someone. But these two are mostly slow shifts that apply much more to some parts of the world than others. Okay, so I'm not going to take a swipe then, in this case, on uh, diversity, equality, inclusion. But seems like that's not a major cause for these declining fertility rates that we're seeing. And it shows that women are fast catching up with men in economic earnings. Okay. So yeah, and there's finally it's here. Here it is. The population threat is in your pocket. Dissatisfied with purely economic explanations, researchers are beginning to point the finger at a new culprit: the digital devices and platforms that play an outsized role in young people's lives across the world. Right? So what they did was that there was this major study in the University of Cincinnati, and they looked at birth rates through the rollout of 4G mobile networks in US and UK. And the number of birth rates fell first and fastest in the areas that received high speed mobile connectivity early years. Can you imagine, like, fertility rates falling wherever mobile phones sweep through? The authors argue that smartphones have transformed how young people spend time with each other, sharply reducing in person socializing and leading to a collapse in their fertility. Now, they don't say this over here. I don't think it's anywhere there, but I'm just thinking access to high speed internet in your hand opens the doors to the hell of fahashiness. So I'm sure there's that role also, but they don't talk about that over here. And every single issue that comes with it. So this was the same everywhere, right? That US, British, and Australian birth rates were flat across the early 2000s, but they fell markedly from 2007 when the iPhone came out. Oh, Steve Jobs, everyone's hero. He was a visionary. He was genius. Well, he's passed away, and he was your hero. And look what legacy he's left behind. Look at his own family situation. I mean, not talk bad about those people who passed away, but again, these heroes that you talk about, these tech titans, these industrial titans, supposed titans, look at what their life is like in their family sphere. And I don't know why we can't look at our own titans, people like, let's say, I don't know, Dabbas or people who are, I suppose, who are Muslims and driving forth industry and have excellent home lives. In fact, I should throw this first. For example, our Sheikh Saab, our Sheikh Saab's father, Rahmatullah alayhi, uh, we hear so much about how he was a captain of industry, and at the same time, he would give excellent, adequate, focused time for his family also. And that worked because look at our Sheikh. Our Sheikh is the most Kamil Sheikh. For me, he's the most Kamil being after Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq Radhiyallahu anhu Sheikh. And of course, there is a Rouhani father also, but as our Sheikh Sahib also elaborates, that his own father um, played a critical role in his nurturing and leading him to become the true titan that our Sheikh Sahib is, right? So look at your own heroes at home, including the industry and the economy. So same in France and Poland around 2009, Mexico, Morocco, Indonesia 2012. What had been steady declines in fertility in Ghana, Nigeria, and Senegal became precipitous drops between 2013 and 2015. All of these inflection points coincided with the mass adoption of smartphones in local markets as measured by Google searches for mobile apps. I mean, the data speaks for itself, my friends. Wow, look at this fall. Senegal still has things going good for it. It's still at 4, but wow, it's falling fast. In 2010, it was 5, and now it's down to 4. In 15 years, Steve Jobs has done an incredible job in reducing birth rates. Wow. Iran, crazy. 1.6. Why? Why, Iran? Why? Why? Don't you need more, people? Indonesia, 2.1. Not good. From 3 to 2.1. Yeah, no, but yes, look at this. Smartphone takeoff. Wow, this massive decline. Wow. Smartphone takeoff, last 10, 15 years, we've seen 30-40% drop offs in fertility rates. Crazy. In country after country, the birth rate plunged after the introduction of smartphones, no matter what the previous trend was. The younger the age group, the more pronounced the downturn. A mirror image of smartphone usage patterns. In fact, there was one thing we had really want to come across or talk about, which was our societies. But a professor is saying it's quite plausible that modern digital media environment has had profound effects on society that have led to decline in romantic coupling. Yeah. So to meet a person you're going to marry requires filtering through a lot of people. If you socialize much less, it takes you much longer to find a match if you find one at all, says demographer Lyman Storm. Yeah, Yeah, a role that families would play beforehand, arranging coupling, but that's also gone through the floor. People don't reach out to their families anymore for coupling and for relationship formation. He adds, if you spend a lot of time socializing with your peers in the real world, your standards are anchored in the real world. Here's another cancer afflicting relationship formation. If you spend your time on Instagram, your standards are anchored to an artificial sense of what's normal. I think you know what they're saying. Um, Social media leaves its mark. Among couples, sexual dysfunction is higher for the young adults with the heaviest social media use. This is the Finnish demographer Anna Rothkirch. She argues that the time taken up by social media and the values and lifestyles such platforms project, the way of life, the ethics, the values, has also made it harder for young adults to form committed relationships. Too much choice is not a good thing, my friends. And this is what this illusion of choice these devices provide. And yeah, this is the one I really wanted to do this thing point out, which is really interesting. That Stanford University's Alice Evans adds that the more traditional a culture is in terms of its gender roles, the greater the impact of smartphones on birth rates. Just, I mean, so basically, it's like a big asteroid dropping on a bigger asteroid dropping on a more vulnerable land. And the data bears this out. The Middle East and Latin America show that many of the steepest birth rate falls the past decade. And a recent study found that social media use sorry, is associated with lower fertility in sub-Saharan Africa. In South Asia, where women's web access is often more limited, fewer people remain single. Alhamdulillah, we don't have access to mobile phones. Our poverty has worked in our favor. Though this is changing, you're literally, if I go outside my parents' Karachi home and you see all these young ones in their tight jeans and taking TikToks, nothing against tight jeans. I used to wear them a lot. But yeah, just making TikToks and weird gyrations and weird dancing to imaginary music on their mobile phones. Evans described what she calls cultural leapfrogging, very bad hopping, adding that Instagram and TikTok enable young women across the world to bypass traditional authorities. No comment. Raising their expectations for a relationship in a way their male counterparts are often not prepared for. I don't know what to think of that. Definitely, expectations should be there. Men should fulfill their role, but how much of it is a sincere desire that the male in front reciprocate certain standards, and how much is living the fantasy world of six packs and never-ending chivalry. Chivalry. FD research has also indicated that the emerging ideological divide between young men and women, blah, blah, blah. So basically, women are becoming more left wing and men are becoming more right wing. Interestingly, in 2001, researchers found that there was a stronger link between falling birth rates and television ownership than between income or education. It used to be the television, and now we have a handheld television. Oh yeah, another one. A decade later, around 2010, 11, a study found that watching TV soap operas that portray small families led women to have fewer children. Do you see that? See, that's Shaitan and his minions, his useful idiots working, right, behind the scenes, writing soap operas, storylines to soap operas that encourage small families, affecting. Yeah, it's all well and good. It's a job of Shaitan. You and me were watching soap operas and influenced and indoctrinated by it. If we choose to be indoctrinated and influenced by it, it's not Shaitan's fault. Sure, his job is to whisper bad things, but you and I have a choice also, right? And we're the true useful idiots, willing to take up their whispers and the machinations of these useful idiots, these devious people, to follow what they say. You're my fault, my friends. Considering smartphone usage is heavier and more solitary than television viewing, the effects could be much larger. Really, Sherlock? Time for the solution. And this is the thing, right? See who you're mentored by. See who you take your way of life from. See who provides sincere solutions to you. Is it your sheikh? Is it the spiritual masters? Is it the ulama that you love to ridicule? Is it genuine heroes? Genuine people who are following the path? Hazrat Taqi Usmani Sahib Dawud Ali? Or is it this FD journalist who means well? Is it all these different people, these therapists and psychologists and something is who don't have their own life sorted out, but they're going to tell you what you need to do. And what they tell you also is tepid, to put it mildly. So, time for a solution, as they say. Let's see what it is. What should be done to contend with trends deeply embedded in modern lifestyles? Governments have to resist the lure of unrealistic solutions. Governments, bad. And we know what Islam has to say about governments, right? Strong state, Islamic state, Muslim state. After all, there is no uninventing the smartphone. There's no going back, right? Which is kind of true. But I mean, it's very interesting how the barrier has been set. As someone says, if someone has bad eyes, we don't fix their genes, we give them glasses. I think the analogy is terrible. It's really terrible. It's a really bad analogy. Bad eyes are a genetic predisposition, or it's a drawing of a bad. It's given by Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, right? But you think smartphones like it's a given. Uh, it's a genetic component. It's an unbreakable component of our society and our fabric. I beg to differ. But anyhow, it's here. So what should we do, Mr. Journalist, FD journalist? What should be done to solve this problem? By contrast, there is ample evidence that providing secure and stable homes to young couples increase their likelihood of starting a family. They're just not getting it, are they? I don't think getting a home is going to solve the problem, but okay, fine. And they said it themselves also, right? Nordic countries, which have stable economies, are still facing a issue of declining birth rates. Baby bonuses incentivizing couples to have children are another option that may arrest the slide, but only if sufficiently generous. I don't know why they're trying to contradict themselves. Just up there, they said that generous, it tripled, right? They're in real terms, it tripled the benefits, and that did not have strong impact. But government resources are limited. I wonder why. Economic factors do not alone decide the demographic decline, and incentives aimed at helping happy couples to have children may be beside the point when more and more people are simply lacking partners. The bigger point is that falling birth rates appear to be part of a broader phenomenon of young adult single isolation and deteriorating well-being. Given the likely link to technology and social media, the best hope of reversing the trend, drumroll, may be to change our digital habits, whether through government cultural shifts or government regulation, or better parenting, more emphasis in the family, getting nurturing from your elders versus, and I'm talking to you, elders, giving your kids these devices. I mean, do you need more evidence? I mean, I'm too tired right now to be angry, but I'm pretty livid at all those people, including myself, who hand over the mobile phone to their kids. Alhamdulillah, thanks to the tawajjuhat of my sheikh, there's a lot of hold in it. I myself addicted to it, so and I've been working very hard on trying to control this addiction with various degrees of success. So next week I might be a topic, or in a couple of weeks or 3 weeks, as Eidos come in between, myself and some Salikin talking about their progress on this issue of mobile phone addiction. I did a bayaan on it a few weeks ago, and I hope to speak on what the progress is and what some habit formations were. Anyhow, in closing, again, just very anticlimactic. Even apart from our diminishing propensity to have children, the task of bringing together a fractured and frustrated generation is a challenge of our times. And you, FT people, and modern society um, have nothing to show for solving it. So that's it from my side. The point, I guess, is change starts at home. So please stay away. Please stay the hell away from mobile phones. I'm talking to myself over here. Okay, stay the hell away from mobile phones. Keep your kids away from them. Stay away from it yourself also. And I think that will solve 80% of current the Jali fitna that we face in this day and age.